Hi, this is Chris Faust on Scrubbing In, and we are very excited to have Anna Stout on this episode of our wonderful little podcast. And we're going to talk a little bit about digital marketing and how it applies to healthcare. So, Anna, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you got here.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me today. I own a digital marketing agency called Astute Communications. We're based here in Nashville, Tennessee. We are a smaller custom shop. We do everything from branding to custom website design and development, search engine optimization, social media, paid media management, etc., kind of you name it. And we work across industries, but we do a lot of work specifically in the healthcare industry, helping healthcare companies solve some of their marketing challenges, produce scalable marketing strategies, etc. So I don't know. I think that's why I'm here.
Yeah. It's no surprise that you get healthcare business. We're in Nashville, and it's become the healthcare mecca. What has been the biggest source of, I'll say, lead generation? How are you meeting these healthcare firms? How are you generating this type of business?
Sure. So most of our healthcare business comes from referrals, and I think that happened because early on in our business, someone took a chance on us. They, got to know our personalities and got an understanding of what we could do as a business, and gave us a chance. And we were able to have a lot of success with that engagement. And when you're able to be successful with something as specific as healthcare marketing, that goes a long way in the eyes of other people in the industry, because it's a very specific language that you have to learn how to speak, and you have to be able to speak with some authority. You have to avoid ruining any of their credibility, even though you yourself may not have that medical background. So we learned really quickly how to really walk that line of representing medical companies. We have an incredibly skilled research team that can write on nearly anything. And I think more than anything, it's really just a commitment to doing the job well. We don't cut corners. We really get to know our clients on a pretty intimate level. We spend a lot of time with them. We ask a lot of, really deep questions to get to know what's at the heart of their business and what their goals are. And everything that we do is really driven by that. So that referral network has grown over time as we've had more successes with more healthcare companies. It becomes a much easier decision, I think, for other companies to hire us to do the work for them, because there's a level of confidence just in knowing that we've been able to do that for companies like theirs in a similar space.
Excellent.
If that makes sense.
Right, absolutely. So you were talking about your success in healthcare. Can you give me an example of a specific instance where you were brought a client and you guys blew out of the water for them? Give me some examples and how you and your team really help healthcare companies achieve their goals and grow.
Sure. So I think one of the best examples is something that we've actually been able to implement a couple of times for a couple of different companies, but we often have companies come to us that are either have just recently received seed money or they're seeking investment, and so the metrics become very, very important to them, and scalability becomes very, very important to them. And so we've been tasked with developing some scalable marketing strategies that they can implement, and then either have us continue to manage or build a marketing team internally as they continue to grow and continue some of those efforts. And we work really comfortably either way. So again, what we'll do is we'll just sit down with the leaders in the company, everyone who's kind of a stakeholder in the direction, and really get to know what are those goals, what are the things that are important to you as a leader of this company, what are the things that are important to your financial stakeholders, what are the things that we need to be able to show people to show that this business has legs and that it's going to be successful, and then we'll build a strategy around that. So sometimes it's developing the full brand, voice, messaging, tone, setting up those guidelines, so that they can be shared throughout the organization. But a lot of the work that we've done has been around website properties. So we'll develop, a corporate website, but also we work a lot with like a WordPress multi-site setup to create an environment where they can quickly spin up new web properties as they acquire new businesses or open new locations. And that just gives some flexibility and efficiency, because a lot of times in these high growth stage companies, they're growing very, very quickly. And so a typical website turnaround for us with most of our clients has been something like 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And a lot of times in these situations, that just doesn't work. They'll have a new location that has to be represented pretty immediately. And so we had to come up with a solution for that. And so these multi-site properties work perfectly in that scenario. And basically what we do is we create a template that's flexible enough to accommodate, maybe different branding or colors, messaging, but all of the bones are there. And that gives them a level of efficiency and a level of scalability that most of the companies we've worked with didn't have before. And then we're doing something unique with a client right now, which they manage several physician practices, and they want each of those physician practices to be represented on social media, to have an active presence on social media. And that's difficult to do at scale for many companies, but as we've developed the overarching brand, we are creating a social media strategy for the physician practices that will be able to apply across practices, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 10, 20 practices down the line, right? And then we've also developed a questionnaire that goes hand in hand with that goes out on a regular basis, typically monthly, to each practice, so we can get the information, the practice-specific information, and we're building that into the calendar so that each practice will have consistent, relevant information, but it will also be unique to that individual practice.
Well, that's wonderful. The fact that you are engaging, you're almost in fact engaging the employees. We're really big on employee engagement here, and that's where you're almost sourcing content from. You're working directly with the people on the ground.
Absolutely.
So how does that influence your content strategy?
Well, it's huge, because as we do research getting to know companies, the thing that you see over and over, especially in healthcare, is stock photo after stock photo after stock photo, and lots of kind of meaningless terms, state-of-the-art technology with nothing really to back that up, or, our high-quality staff with no credentials listed to explain who you're going to be working with. And that is, as you look at several examples, because we always do a competitor analysis. So as you look at several examples side by side, you start to really be able to see so clearly how big of a problem that is. And so then we're tasked with finding a solution for that. Well, how do we create unique, original, engaging content, again, though, in a way that's scalable? Because it's one thing to manage one medical practice online, their digital presence, and share new people in their practice or their community engagement, but it's an entirely separate thing to look at how can we do this when they have 10 practices, when they have 20 practices, and so on and so on. So that strategy has really been driven by the lack of strategy, I think, that you see really often. That's very prevalent in healthcare. We laugh a lot when we're looking at it about the white coat with the stethoscope. Yep. It's just interchangeable on different faces. And so we're really looking for ways to make that content more engaging and make it more authentic to the practices and to the companies that we're working with.
So I've got a question fairly similar, but I've noticed over the last 10 years that it can get difficult to have a normal, I would say normal, but a very casual conversation with someone whose name is followed by a PhD. Mm-hmm. Getting to have, that you have to bring them down to the level. Do you find that to be, I don't know, a hindrance in getting content out of someone with, that's hyper-credentialed? How do you get around that? Because I know with us, we want to make sure that the content that we get from our top-level clinicians can also be consumable by me,
mm-hmm.
by the person with no clinical background whatsoever. So Do you ever have problems with that, issues with that, and how do you get around them?
Sure. So it's certainly intimidating, especially on the front end when you're first starting that conversation and this is what some of the information you need to get is. You don't even know what some of the questions you should be asking are, because you just don't have the education and background to understand those things. But what I've found is most of the time, if I just ask the question that I have, if I just say, okay, I don't quite understand what that means, can you give me some more context? We get to the place that we need to get to. And I think that that's probably the hardest part, is just mustering the courage to sort of humble yourself and say, stop acting like you're supposed to know everything that they know. And it's a process, certainly. I think I did that yesterday. Unfortunately, someone else on my team has learned the same lesson, and they were able to say, so wait, can you explain what that means again? Because you just have to be open and willing and trust the person that you're talking to be open and willing to share that information as well. And then I think the follow-up to that is having, again, a really solid research team supporting us who can take some of our notes that maybe we didn't quite understand and distill those into information that does make sense, and then just quality control after that to make sure once we have a draft of content written in more consumable terms that it's run by someone who fully understands again and
Right.
and can say, yes, this holds up, or that doesn't quite make sense, we need to rework this. But I think just having those levels built in and promising yourself that you're not going to be afraid to ask the questions are some of the most important factors.
Mm-hmm. So healthcare companies are notorious data hoarders. They're always publishing white papers, they're collecting data on their users, their employees. There's just a wealth of data. And I'm curious, do you ever get the chance to delve into that? Because from my point of view, that seems like a wealth of content in itself. You just have to make it consumable.
Absolutely. That's where there's a huge opportunity for us, and we've done white papers, we've done really across the spectrum types of content in the healthcare space, but it's a huge opportunity for us because they have this wealth of data, but it's ugly. It's always ugly. And so we're able to really come and say, all right, let's just give it to us. We'd rather have too much information than too little. And we can take that and make it look pretty, I'll say in quotes, right? And it's so much more than that, obviously, right? We can take it and design it in such a way that it makes sense to people, that it's consumable, and even to the people who understand the data. There have been times when we're able to take it and distill it in such a way that there may be a data point that might have fallen through the cracks before, but we can place the focus on it, and it makes it so much more important. And that's exciting for us when we have the chance to not only take that information and sort of give it a new life by the way that we present it, but also even then to turn it back as a mirror to the company, and they can use it in a way that's effective for them as well.
Nice. HIPAA is a huge issue. I'll say issue. As marketers, I know that we have to take that sort of stuff really seriously. And the C-suite, the management, that they care about it. They're very, very strong-willed about following every rule there is for HIPAA. So, as a outsourced marketing firm, how do you deal with that? How do you interface with a company to make sure that you're following regulations, both at the federal level, state level, and within the company?
Right. So I do try to be particularly cautious about this. And generally we'll take, because we're not HIPAA specialists, we'll generally take one of two routes. There have been a number of times when I've actually gone to a client and say, we need to take this form off your website. You can't be collecting that information. That's personal health information, and they sometimes haven't even really been aware. Not as much that it wasn't HIPAA compliant, but maybe even that it wasn't there. That sometimes they've said, how did that end up on our website, right? And it's like, well, I don't know, but I'm telling you, we're not going to put it when we rebuild it, right? So it's that conversation sometimes, because there is a considerable additional cost to HIPAA compliance. And so depending on the scope of the project and what all we're doing, what the goals are, sometimes the recommendation is let's clear some things off to ensure that you are HIPAA compliant. And outside of that, on the other side, when they really need to be collecting that data online, making it easier on their consumers. There's a consumer expectation at this point, I think, that they'll be able to transmit their information online. We're usually looking at third-party options that can ensure, that can really guarantee that HIPAA compliance. We maintain secure hosting space and the things that we can do on our end, but when it gets into, I think, just the real nitty-gritty technicalities of HIPAA compliance, we just, as a general rule, exercise a lot of caution.
Well, that's good. That's smart. I think that would be very helpful when working with healthcare organizations. Earlier in the conversation, we talked a little bit about social media. I'm curious to find out how you're utilizing social media in the healthcare space. I know that a lot of people are afraid of it because they feel some way or another it's affected by HIPAA. They're afraid of people self-identifying, all sorts of a slew of information. But so how do you go about making a successful social media campaign in healthcare?
Sure. So a lot of it is resource sharing. And again, that comes from the relationships that we're building with the C-suite, with the stakeholders in the company, and understanding what are the other companies that you align with, what are brands that you look to, or resources that you know you can count on for relevant, true information. And we'll start out with kind of a list from them of these are approved resources that we can pull information from. We look inside of the organization. Again, there's a wealth of knowledge and expertise inside every single one of these organizations, and for the most part, it goes completely untapped. And so it's hard sometimes to get 30 minutes or an hour blocked off on this highly sought after physician's schedule or on this CEO's schedule, but it's so beneficial. And in that 30-minute to an hour span of time, we can get a lot of content. And so it's not just about seeking, one nugget of information for one social media post. It's about really going into the conversation with the knowledge that we need to fill out this block of time to share information with our community, and how can we just get as much as possible. And so
from one conversation, you can get not just a video interview, you can get a ton of different social shares, you can get pull quotes, you can turn it into an infographic.
Absolutely. And not just one video. I mean, why should one video ever just be one video?
Right.
Especially on social media, right? I mean, you can have so much impact with a minute-long video. Sure, you can have just as much impact with a really well-done 5-second clip. Like, there's a lot of opportunity there to do different things. Infographics are hugely impactful. And yeah, we just really look at ways to use content in different ways, to gather as much as we can. And then there's social advertising, which we've had a lot of success with from a lead gen standpoint, which has been really cool, because we sort of struggled with social advertising, especially in healthcare for a while, because of HIPAA compliance, because, well, you can't target people based on their medical conditions. We can't reach the patients directly. But what we did find out was that, well, we can start filling your lead funnel with partners, referral partners. We've had a lot of luck with helping healthcare companies find referral partners, and start building relationships with them by developing white papers, by creating videos, by creating resources for those people. Pushing social ads to them because we can target by profession, and then getting those people into the lead funnel and starting a conversation with them. And that's been wildly successful with a lot of our healthcare clients.
Well, you do amazing work. I am so proud to know you and to have worked with you. How can people find out more about Astute?
Sure. So as you can imagine, we're all over the internet. We are at http://astute.co. That's CO, no M on the end. We're on Instagram at Astute Nashville. We're on Facebook at Astute Design. We're on Twitter at Astute Co. You can email us, hello@astute.co, and we're located in Woodbine, just south of downtown.
Awesome. Well, Anna, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.